Hello and welcome to the StatPad YouTube channel. Today it is me and Peter. We're just starting this and we're talking about Scottish football because, it needs more attention and the league is getting better. So quite a lot to go through today as the season is about to start and the League Cup has just finished. We've got the draw for that and we've got the European qualifiers coming up. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on, Alex.
Absolutely, absolutely. First off, your team, Ross County. They seem to do all right. Obviously, they topped their group. They with 3 wins, 1 draw, and obviously the penalty win. It wasn't looking too convincing in the first game, but the final game was rather convincing.
Indeed, it was. And I think you're right at the start. Even up until the last fixture, I don't think we looked very convincing at all. We were kind of just getting wins with a couple of goals. We weren't, our play was okay. It was nothing special, but I think, well, fingers crossed anyway. We think all the new boys have finally started to click into place. And I think that showed its worth on Saturday with scoring 7. Yes, it was against East Fife, but Ross County winning 7-0 doesn't happen very often. So we'll take pride in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously now we've got the draw. But before that, the way the teams got through and all that. So we'll just start at the top. We'll start with Group A, and a team that, to say the least, had an underwhelming season last season. And Jim Goodwin's come in. They've made a good few signings. So you've got Aberdeen. Obviously, they take all 12 points. They win every single game. They beat Peterhead 2-0. They beat Dumbarton 2-0. They beat Stirling Albion 5-0. And then they beat Wraith Rovers 3-0. New players coming in. Jim Goodwin, bit of hope. Could they be fighting for third this season?
I would definitely say so. I think, not only does he bring sort of that bit of discipline, but he's also experienced in league already. Obviously, on paper it's an easy group, but Wraith Rovers in there, a lot of people might have expected them to cause a wee upset to Aberdeen, but very, very plain sailing for Aberdeen. And, from what I've seen of them, the new signings look quality, they look good, and they seem to be playing well. So I don't see any reason. Maybe going back straight away to third might be a bit of a big ask, but I think they'll definitely be pushing up in top 6 and seeing if they can get him back into European football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that Bojan Miovski, he seems a good striker. He comes in, he wins the penalty, which and scores a goal in his debut, which is always a good sign. It was a good penalty too. Aberdeen, yeah, like you say, I mean, Wraith were unbeaten up until they played Aberdeen in that final game, and they looked disciplined, they looked good, and I mean Ross McCrory scores an absolute screamer. The team seems to be clicking, seems to be coming together, and something that you thought they might have to deal with is the loss of Lewis Ferguson. That is obviously a big loss, and a big, a leader. Obviously, it didn't work out as well as Scott Brown had hoped last season, and maybe they thought they had another leader coming in there, and it's a bit less. There's been a lot of change, and that can obviously be good because they realistically needed a refresh after last season. So it's a good start for them to win the group and win it unbeaten. They didn't concede a single goal either, so that obviously went well. Into Group B, then you've got the winners were Partick Thistle. The Premiership team in there was Kilmarnock, who lose out just by the bonus point in a draw on penalties. But Partick topped the group. Surprise you?
Yeah, slightly. Obviously, being the Premiership team, you'd expect Kilmarnock. On paper, you'd say they've got a better squad, but I think Ian McCall. I watched a few Partick Thistle games last season when I was down at uni. Was always impressed. Never the most glamorous team, but they always find a way to get things done. They always find a way to score goals with big man Graham up top and other clever players around them. And I think fair play to them for topping the group, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could maybe cause an upset because from what I've watched of them in their highlights, they actually look fairly tidy so far this pre-season.
So without going into too much of the championship, do you think they could be contenders?
I don't see why not. I think they've all strengthened, but they've strengthened one of the best, I would say. Obviously, Inverness will be looking to get up there again, but we know what's happened to them. They've been stuck in a rut. I get, the championship seems to get harder and harder every year. And again, I think there's a lot of quality teams. 6 or 7 teams in that league are going to be looking and saying, why can't we go and win it? So it'll be tough for them as always, but I would definitely pitch them to maybe finish top 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got Dundee who will be hoping to try and bounce back. Hamilton are obviously still there, and as we said, Wraith Rovers, who you can never write off. Next group, your probably favorite group would be Group C. You obviously had Bucky Thistle, East Fife, and Alloa missing out by and Dunfermline missing out by quite a bit. As Ross County won the group. Like you say, a little bit of the 7 goals. Before that, the results were not as convincing. I mean, a 2-0 win against Alloa, a 1-0 win against Dunfermline, and they beat Bucky Thistle, the Highland League champions, on penalties. Did you have a little bit of worry at the start, or did you think things would take a while to click?
I did have a worry, and I think obviously we had a preseason camp in Italy, but we didn't actually. We played one preseason game against Boa Rangers, and when you're going straight into the cup just after one game, and it just felt like we were treating it as like sort of just a diddy preseason. And I was worried, to be fair, because drawing to Bucky at their place, that's not a good result at all. Taking 2 points slightly improves the result, but still, it set us in the back foot. And obviously, in the long run, you could say it cost us because we ended up finishing unseeded. So, and obviously, we'll talk about the tie. So it gives you a harder tie. But yeah, all in all, fairly pleased. I don't think you can ask for much more than to top your group in the League Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and bearing in mind that ends up to be Bucky's only point, and for a long while in that game, I mean, County probably should have been ahead at half time and weren't taking the chances, but once Bucky scored, didn't look like County were going to get back into it. So a little bit worrying at the start, but obviously, as we've said, as it's gone on, it's got better for Ross County, and Malky Mackay's building something strong. I mean, County, there's been a lot of additions. I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you a big question: who has impressed you the most so far?
It's an easy one for me. I've seen most of us in preseason, watched most of the games. New player I've been impressed most by is Owura Edwards on loan from Bristol City. I think a lot of people were going to question us, saying where are our goals, creativity going to come from? Losing Hungbo, losing Charles Cook, but he looks so sharp. He's one of the sharpest players I've seen. He's got a skill in him. He's really nimble, rapid. I know, and you can say we were playing lower league opposition, but he looks brilliant. And I think if he keeps playing the way he is, I don't know if you saw his goal at the weekend. It was an absolute scorcher. But I think if he keeps going the way he's going, then he could certainly be a big star for us and have a big future.
Of course, and then obviously one of the top scorers in the competition with 3 goals in his 4 games. Bit of a surprise because when he came up, when he got announced at Ross County, not only was it not the announcement we were expecting, but there were a few Doncaster fans that were cheering he was gone. Obviously that's Hawula. Thoughts on him so far?
He's looked really good. I mean, when you first see him, he's not a glamorous footballer at all. I wouldn't necessarily say he's got that, the top quality, but what he is, he looks like a brilliant poacher. He seems to be in the right place at the right time. His hold-up play looks very good, which obviously we kind of only had Jordan White to do that. So I think it's kind of coming and being a good balancing act. We've now got 2 players who can come and do that. And in all honesty, I mean, as the stats say, he's one of the top scorers. He does look like he's going to have better goal-scoring exploits than Jordan White, who does struggle in front of goal sometimes.
Is he more of a because obviously the only goal I've actually caught of his was the one against East Fife. Is he more of a poacher striker, a one-touch finisher striker, or is he linked up in the build-up play, etc.?
I would definitely say he's more of a poacher, but I feel like the more we see of him and the more Malky can coach him one-on-one, I think we could see him linking up. I think his goal against Alloa in the last minute was quite a good example. The ball gets flipped over the top. He chases in behind. 2 minutes before he scored, he had the exact same one, and he missed one of the worst sitters ever. And that was kind of thing we were thinking, maybe the Doncaster fans are right. Maybe he's a bit of a donkey, but then second opportunity, he gets a good finish, and it's a nice curled finish around the goalie. So I think, not only can he maybe go up there and be a target man, but he's got quality in him as well. I think we just need to find ways to bring it out. And I think Doncaster fans will be maybe sad they're missing him when he bags goals against the big boys.
Well, it's guaranteed, isn't it? It's absolutely guaranteed. Obviously next you've got Group D, another surprise and another Premiership team out. So you had Clyde finish bottom, you had Bonnyrigg Rose, Greenock Morton, Hibs finished second, and they've spent a decent bit. A few players have come in, and then obviously above them and winning the group, another Championship side in Falkirk. So
yeah, what more can we say?
Yeah,
I mean, they won 2 games, but losing 2 games when you're Hibs. Obviously, they had a poor season, but you're thinking surely that's not going to carry on. New
Yeah,
boss, new players. But
absolutely. I mean, sorry
I mean,
to make that even worse. Falkirk are League One. They never went
yeah,
up last
oh
season for
yeah,
whatever reason. I thought they went up last season. They did not. They are League One, so that is a kick in the teeth for Hibs, and obviously not that it would have mattered anyway, but they lose a point through absolute craziness because they field Rocky Bushiri, who is suspended, the same Rocky Bushiri who they said farewell to at the end of last season, despite playing him too many times, which meant that he had a clause in his contract that he was re-signing with Hibs. So that was a bit of a mess and one that Hibs fans aren't too happy about, but the rest of the league seem to be because he does not seem to be fitting in.
definitely not. And I think it's just such a baffling situation. The only sort of help I can throw at Hibs is the fact that Elgin City managed to do the same thing when they fielded Daryl McCartney. So I'm thinking maybe there was some sort of confusion in how the rules were written up and suspension stuff like that. But it's just stupid. And I mean the fact they've re-signed him and Hibs fans were kind of glad to see the back of him, and now he's kind of starting regularly. I'm not sure how that's going to go down. And as we've seen from last season, Hibs can be, a bad place for players to play when they get on the wrong side of the crowd. So I do feel for Rocky. I think he's going to be in for a tough season in front of that Easter Road crowd, to be honest.
I'll save the two. I'll save a lot of the bad puns for later, but maybe a bit of a rocky season for him. Next you've got Group E and another Premiership letdown in this one. So you've got in last you had Cowdenbeath, then you have a newly named FC Edinburgh. You have St Mirren finished third. Adrionians finished above them, and top of the group, winning every game they played, was Arbroath. Arbroath obviously had a very good season in the Championship. Missed out in the end, slightly harshly, but still they'll be competing again this season. St Mirren though were disappointing. They really were disappointing, and it seemed like maybe Stephen Robinson isn't the right fit. Is it too early to say that?
Not necessarily. I think he had a bit of time at the end of last season, and certainly their form was not good at all. I actually don't know if they won a game since he came in last season
So I think
in the league.
he came in, and
That's
it was
off the
his
top of my
first game.
head.
Was his first game? I think was against Rangers, if I'm right here, which they lose 4-0. They then lose to a very poor Hibs side 1-0. Their 2 wins come against the bottom 2 places, which are St Johnstone and St Mirren. But in those last 5 games, which is the split, which is the bottom half of the table, the games that maybe you expect St Mirren to be at least challenging in, they scored just the 3 goals in the 5 games, 2 0-0 draws. At home to Livingston, you should be expecting the win. Yeah, they're not looking too promising. I think Stephen Robertson left Scottish football at a good time. I don't think he had a poor time at Motherwell, so to speak, but the ending was it was time to go. And now he's come back to Scottish football. It's going to take time. I mean, St Mirren are obviously not a standout team by any means, and finishing in outside of relegation places is going to keep their fans satisfied, so to speak. But that won't give them much promise whatsoever. Finishing third in a group that realistically they'll have probably been quite happy that they were drawn into. Up next, you got Group F, and probably not so much of a surprise, but still the disappointment. The Premiership side in here, St Johnstone finishing third. As you mentioned, Elgin City, they didn't have too good a start. They lost all 4 of their games and finished bottom. They had Ayr finished fourth, St Johnstone, the disappointment, third. Queen of the South second, and then the surprise, a big surprise, top of the table and in Athletic.
Yeah, that's some achievement. And yeah, not the biggest points tally. Obviously, that group, there was a lot of close ties, a lot of draws. No one really ran away with it. Arden finished on 10, but to beat the likes of Queen of the South, Ayr, Elgin, all decent sides in their own right, and not even to mention St Johnstone as well, who big shocker again from them. But Arden, you can only say hats off to them. I be honest, I've not watched any of what they played, but from what I've heard, and the start show, they've obviously had a good start, and they'll be hoping to continue that when the league season opens up.
Absolutely. I mean, the only one I managed to catch from that group was St. Johnstone against Annan Athletic. St. Johnstone, obviously, they have 2 players sent off. They lose the game on penalties, even with 9 men. I mean, they lose one of them very late on in the 89th minute. The other one sent off 29 minutes, and still you're thinking, I mean, that shouldn't be happening against a League Two opposition, albeit they missed out in the playoffs last season for promotion, and they had a really good season on Annan's standards, but they are still a League Two side. They are a part-time side, and the season before last, St. Johnstone come away with 2 trophies, and they're thinking they can build on it. I mean, last season they drew away from home with Galatasaray, which is a massive result for them. It now comes to the question. I mean, we'll talk about the league a little bit more later, but surely they're going to be involved in a relegation scrap again this season.
I have to agree. I think, as we've mentioned just before, both the Saints, they don't look like they're in a good position. Obviously, I think it was last week, the actual McBookie stats came out for who's going to finish bottom. Obviously, County were favourite there, which is not too pleasing on the eye. But I think there's definitely a couple of teams that don't look safe at all. And I think St. Johnstone the most. You're not going to be shocked if they're lingering down there. And a team of St. Johnstone's size, they should be pushing top 6 every season, let's be honest. And even the squad they've got, I think they've made some good signings. They've made some signings who know Scottish football, obviously Graham Carey, Ryan McGowan. They've made some good signings, and they've got some good youngsters coming through. Max Kucheri-Avi, he was on loan in the Highland League last season. He's been given a lot of minutes, but it just doesn't seem to be working for them. I don't know why. And I honestly think if Callum Davidson can't turn around, then the door's got to be shown to him. I think, to be honest, it's been waiting in the wings for a while, and I think it might come a crop in this season sooner than we think.
Absolutely. I mean, he's obviously a cult hero, and St. Johnstone fans may even call him a legend for what he did. I don't know, how high the bar is. I'm not old enough to know what St. Johnstone have done in their history, but obviously they come away with 2 wins in the group. Elgin City, who, as I said, lost all their games, and a scrappy 1-0 win against Ayr United. They've brought in the likes of, as you say, they've brought in a couple of players. They've brought in Graham Carey. They've brought in a bit of experience. Jamie Murphy is obviously, what can you call it, a big signing now. I mean, it's still an asset worth having, and obviously, like you say, you've got. I'm going to butcher the name if I try and say it. So you've got the youngster from Ukraine coming through, and you've still got players like Murray Davidson's been there. Adam Montgomery's on loan now. Andy Constein's come in. That team should be pushing for top 6. I mean, Aberdeen realistically were just too stubborn to keep Constein on. If not, he would still be there. And the fans weren't happy he was going. So clearly they thought he still had another season in him. If it's not going to click for St. Johnstone, he has to go. Yeah, I absolutely agree. The only thing with Callum Davidson is obviously they're probably more willing to give him a chance because of what happened 2 seasons ago. And I'm of the thought that you'd rather die a legend than live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So before he starts getting shouted out and kind of ruins his St. Johnstone legacy, so to speak, it is probably best that he does go and move on. And even in terms, it might take a small hit for St. Johnstone, but something that needs to happen is a refresh of some sort there. Moving on, Group G, the penultimate group. You've got Kelty Hearts, who obviously had a fantastic season last season, won League Two. They finished bottom. They've lost their manager, Kevin Thompson, but that shouldn't do them too harm, and they'll probably challenge in the League One this season. You've Albion Rovers, Cove Rangers, who are obviously in the Championship now. Premiership side Livingston finishing second. It's maybe a little bit of a disappointment, but it's also maybe a bit harsh to call it a disappointment for Livy. Obviously, they would have loved to get out of the group, but Inverness Cali win it and go unbeaten. Is this their season?
It's a big question. Obviously, you know where my loyalties lie, but I have to admit, I think they've had a good window. They've recruited in the areas they needed. I think, given Billy Dodds, they went through that really sticky patch last season, and I knew a lot of Cali fans were kind of maybe kind of calling for his head a bit, thinking who else could they get in, but they stuck with him. They did really well, came close in the playoffs. I think they were unlucky in the playoffs because they ran St. Johnstone, the better of the two sides in the first leg, definitely anyway. could it be their season? I think if they manage to find that consistency, then it definitely could be. That's always the thing Cali struggle with. They always do well, but then they find this patch where their form falls off and other teams could manage to push ahead of them. But if they can find that consistency and if the new boys can settle in, then I think they've got every chance, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. I mean, when they were both in the Premiership, County and Cali used to have polar opposite seasons. Cali used to start the season thinking, wow, these guys are going to be challenging for Europe, and then drop off. Whereas County, you'd be saying, wow, they're in a relegation scrap, and then they just slowly improve. So yeah, they need to sort that, especially that mid-season that they had this season, because they started picking up the wins towards the end of the season, and they look really good. I mean, even though they are destroying the scoreline in the second leg against St. Johnstone, where it's 4-0. Realistically, they probably should have been 2 up at half time. So it is a tough one for Cali to take, that they are still in there, but maybe it gives them that extra season to prepare, and hopefully they could be back stronger, and we could be seeing some El Kesco games not too far future. So come to the final group, you have Stranraer, Forfar, Queen's Park, and then in second, Hamilton, and top, last season's relegated party from the Premiership, Dundee. Obviously that sets the tone for their season. 4 games, 4 wins. Not that I caught much of the actual football, but the results are looking promising. Of course, it's only Forfar, but they beat them 5-1. They beat Queen's Park 2-1. They beat Stranraer 3-0, and they beat Hamilton 3-0. Again, another team that are going to be right up for the challenge in the Championship this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've done quite well. That's pretty impressive to win all 4 games. Obviously, they've got 2 Championship sides in there. Hamilton, I guess, they've had a sort of a late change in manager throughout pre-season with John Rankin stepping up. So no one really knows what to expect from them. They won 2 of their games, so fair play. But I think Gary Bowyer coming in at Dundee done very well so far. I think they've made a few decent signings, and I think from what I've seen on Twitter anyway from Dundee fans, a lot of their players are kind of pushing on. I think 4 wins out of 4, that's a very good start to the season, and I think they're probably one of the bookies' favourites to go on and win the Championship, definitely, just because they've got that sort of Premiership nucleus, if you will. They've still got the likes of Paul McGowan who know what it takes to not only win the Championship and come up, but still got the Premiership quality in there as well. So I think could be a big season for Dundee, and a successful one at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, something that you find a lot in the Scottish Championship is if you don't bounce back straight away, you find yourself in the likes of Cali's position, the likes of Hamilton's position. I mean, even Partick Thistle find it really hard and went down again, and they're on the bounce back. So it does take a hit, and especially maybe a mentality thing and a confidence thing. If you can't bounce back up like Kilmarnock have done recently, if you spend too long in there, obviously the squad will be depleted because the better players will go elsewhere. So that is something that Dundee will be hoping to just bounce straight back, and they sure have the quality to at least be pushing for that top spot. We'll go on to the draw and finish our discussion on the League Cup. You have Dundee against Falkirk, Annan against Aberdeen, Partick against Arbroath, Rangers against Queen of the South, Hearts against Kilmarnock, Motherwell against Cali, Livy against Dundee United, and Ross County against Celtic. First of all, the European teams, the teams that are in Europe, obviously now come into play. The only one that have played a qualifier so far is Motherwell, and that was disappointing to say the least. Not only the result, but the performance seemed pretty poor. We'll start with the first one I have on here, which is Dundee against Falkirk. Going to be a tough match. Obviously, like I said, Falkirk haven't quite bounced back from the Championship relegation just yet, and Dundee are just off the back of a relegation, so it's going to be a tough game, but surely Dundee will be the favourites to go through there.
Yeah, again, I agree with you. I don't think that's going to be plain sailing for Dundee in the slightest, but you've got to back them. They've got the squad there. They've got a good gaffer now who seems to have them gelling. So yeah, I think Dundee will be seen through to the next round there.
Again, I mean, obviously the surprise package in the group stage, for me anyway, was Annan. They take on a very tough game against a very good Aberdeen. It's looking that one, although it's not, written that their name is in the hat for the next round yet, it should be pretty plain sailing, that one, for Aberdeen.
Definitely, I agree with you, and I don't think it'll turn into a St Johnstone of last season where they were knocked out by lower league opposition, and there was carnage there. But I think obviously Annan have got the home tie, could make it difficult for Aberdeen. But yeah, I think especially with we were praising Aberdeen at the start of this episode, so I think it should be no bother for Aberdeen.
Absolutely. Next, you got another interesting one. Obviously, High Flying Partick. They seem to be doing good. They're bringing a lot of players. They have a strong affiliation, it seems, with Rangers. There's a few players gone on loan there. Obviously, Tony Weston, who had a really good season in the loan league last season. I mean, obviously, it didn't work out for Allegri at Partick last season. A few players going over. Maybe rumored to be a few more. Partick and Arbroath. Arbroath, obviously, again, had a very good season last season. It's a tough tie, and although most eyes will be elsewhere, could probably be the most entertaining game on there.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think it's one of those games. Even no matter what competition it's in, whether it's the cup or the champ, it's one of those games that you can't call. It's could swing either way. It could be a draw. If it was in the championship, I'd probably call it to be a draw, but obviously that's not going to happen. So impossible to call. But I think maybe just tip Partick for that one if I had to.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, they've got the home advantage, so they should see themselves through. The next one, unfortunately for Queen of the South, is probably going to be a quite simple answer. Rangers at home. You never know, but you kind of do, don't you?
You definitely do, and I can't think of a time in my life when a tie like that has ended the wrong way around for Rangers. So I think, especially the late recruitment for them, especially even tonight, they've added in Yilmaz at left back, which you'll be delighted about. But yeah, the recruitments look good. I think they've respent that money well so far. Yeah, Queen of the South could be a 5 or 6 goals in that one, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a chance for Rangers to give the likes of, if he's back, Alex Lowry, Charlie McCann, Leon King, these guys who should be pushing for the first team and obviously rack up a few appearances at the end of the season last season. It's a chance to give them, their shot and try and win a position. High Flying Hearts last season, obviously now in here, Europe, they've added strong. Their team is only improving, and this could be the season where they pull away from the rest of the pack. They have newly promoted Kilmarnock. I think that could be a tough tie. I mean, Kilmarnock always is for every team. They seem to show up more in the big games. But again, Hearts will be highly confident that they'll be the team going through there.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what you're saying. I think Kilmarnock are always really robust, especially even more so under Derek McInnes. I've not seen them this pre-season and this League Cup, whether they're going to stick with that back three that they won the championship with, or they're going back to a 4. But whatever they play, they always seem to be in the games no matter who they're playing. But yeah, again, Hearts with the addition of Shankland is scary. I think if I'm not sure how their front 3 or front 2 is going to really line up, but a front 2 of Liam Boyce and Lawrence Shankland scares me very much.
Yeah, big time. I mean, Shankland's goals should at least replace what they're missing now in Ellis Sims, and like you say, Kilmarnock with a back 3 is potentially what they're going to go for. I mean, they've added Lewis Mayo on loan, and obviously Jordan Jones is now back as well, who's a pacey player. Not that the tracking back is something that I see him doing too much of. Next, you've obviously got another European team, Motherwell. They take on Cali. Cali will be right up for that, and it's hard to say when you've not seen a full preseason, and I've only really watched them in their European game, but Motherwell didn't look too convincing to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and I think they got European football last season. They beat Ross County to it, but in all honesty, I didn't think they were that good last season. They managed to find the results when it mattered, but over a period of time, consistency-wise, towards the end of the season, I think they were quite poor, to be honest. Their football wasn't the best. They just seemed to, they managed to pip other teams to it. So fair play, but again, coming off the back of that Sligo result, that could knock confidence if they don't manage to bounce back in the second leg. So, as you said, I wouldn't be shocked if Cali could go and nick a result there.
Big time, and even if they do manage to turn that around, they will then obviously have more European football. So there's the balance of physical tiredness and mental tiredness as well, because Europe, obviously, as we saw last season with Rangers on their European run, it took a massive toll in league results and rotation, etc. Motherwell don't obviously have the financial aids that Rangers do, so that will be even more of a struggle. especially if they do get through. There's the possibility of Sparta Prague. The last two then, Livingston versus Dundee United is I'm going to say it just now. I think Livy are a strong side, especially at home, but Dundee United are pretty much already through for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Jack Ross coming in makes them an even stronger side than they were. I didn't really ever honestly, hand on heart, rate Tam Courts as a gaffer, to be honest. He did well when he was there, but it was a one season thing. He was never really proven. But now I think they've got an experienced head, a proven gaffer, and the signings they've made have been very impressive as well.
I was going to say an experienced head off the pitch and one on the pitch as well in Stephen Fletcher. So
definitely
there's and obviously, I mean, bringing Dylan Levitt back is absolutely huge. I mean, it's something that as a Rangers fan, we talked about, because he's young, potentially bringing him in and developing him, maybe sticking him out on the loan, because he was a standout player for Dundee United last season.
100%. I'm shocked that they've managed to retain his services, to be honest. No disrespect to Dundee United, but, the pedigree he's got, obviously coming up through Man United, then coming and proving himself, not only up here, but on a couple of loans and the Welsh national team. I thought it was something, begging for a Rangers or a Celtic to take him on and just see what's there, because it was kind of a no-risk signing if they were going to do it. But credit to Dundee United. I think, if he can keep up his form, they could get a really, really good fee for him. And, not only at the end of this season coming up, but even if they manage to keep him for a couple of years, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, and then obviously the final one, and listen, Celtic will be looking at Ross County thinking they should win it. Obviously, they should win it. I mean, financially, they're stronger. The quality of Celtic is better. But if any team was to be their bogey team, I mean, look at a couple of years ago. Obviously, they were beaten in their own back garden by Ross County 2-0 in this exact cup. I mean, you've got to go back to when Ross County won this cup. They put them out at Hampden. Ross County have a good record against Celtic. It does seem to be their bogey team. What are your thoughts?
I don't want to make myself look stupid here, but I think I might be right in saying that there's a stat that they've never actually beaten us in the League Cup since it was reformed. So if luck's on our side, then it's a home tie under the lights on a Wednesday night in Dingwall. Special things could happen. Jordan White's still there, loves a goal against Celtic. Alex Jakovic at the back. Well, we all remember that header, don't we? So I think it can be done. I think, but it's Celtic. They're pretty unstoppable in terms of last season, and we did struggle big time against them at their place. Obviously, ran them close at home, but obviously all eyes are going to be on Celtic to win that one. But I'll always have a little bit of faith.
and the way they play in domestic competitions, I mean, especially the League Cup, is something that is, they seem to dominate games and not really have a struggle. But not to give you too much hope, it is obviously lodged between a very tough away tie against what we're saying is going to be a strong Dundee United, and then the Old Firm comes after it. Their mind is going to be on the league, because at the end of the day, that's the biggest prize available to them in Scotland.
Especially, and I mean, you think back to the start of last season when Celtic didn't exactly start smoothly, and they were obviously on the chase for points. If anything like that happens again, then they could be pushing the League Cup thoughts aside. So, yeah, there's a bit of hope there for County, I think. But like you say, I think Celtic are Celtic. They're always going to be favourites to win, and Absolutely. They probably will win. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they realistically they should win. I just wanted to give your team a chance. Right, so we've not got a lot of time left. Obviously, we want to get into the league, but I do wonder if we leave that for another day. So I'm just going to ask you for a couple things from the League Cup. I'm going to ask you for your surprise, which for me is pretty straightforward. Your team to watch and your disappointment.
My surprise, obviously, Annan. I think top in the group. The lowest league side left in the competition now, I believe. Who knows? They could go and cause an upset. They've done it in the group stages, so definitely one to keep an eye on. My surprise, as much as it pains me to say it, I'm going to say Inverness Cali, because I think we've seen them do it before, going on cup runs. Obviously, won the Scottish Cup a wee while ago. I think they obviously beat the Premiership side in Livy in their group. They've got Motherwell, who are in a bit of a slightly sticky situation as it stands. So wouldn't put it past them going to go and get a result down there. And the disappointment, I had 3 to choose from. It was St Mirren, St Johnstone, or Hibs, but I'm going for Hibs just because of the Rocky situation, because it makes it 10 times funnier, and we all love it when they Hibs it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I'll absolutely agree with Annan Athletic. And my team to watch is going to be Aberdeen. I mean, it's hard not to. They never conceded a single goal. They were absolutely flying, and you can only beat what's in front of you. Although it didn't. It's not the biggest teams that they've got more of a challenge coming up when the league comes, but that will be my team to watch. My team that could potentially be pushing out the dark horses, maybe, if you like, and obviously I'll have to agree with Hibs being the disappointment. So thank you for coming on and discussing it, Peter. And hopefully next time we'll actually get to talk about the league. But there was a lot more to talk about than I thought. So yeah, like I say, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you next time.